Understand your health. When was the last time you talked to your doctor about inherited traits that make you more vulnerable to certain illnesses? We invite you to join the Genius community by signing up at buyusforall.com. As a Genius member, you will receive a personalized health risk assessment that helps start the conversation with your doctor. All right. All right. Hello. Welcome to our Go Live, our founders live session. My name is Madia Logan, and I'm here with Michael Akinyele and Dr. Bradford Wilson. And we are going to just take 30 minutes of your time, talk to you a little bit about cervical cancer, and give you some updates on what's going on with the company. So there's lots of great work going on with Indigenous health right now. We're really excited to start going into our celebration for Martin Luther King Day. We're really excited about our founders are participating in some of the festivities with the King Center, and we'll be talking about that. But we're really excited that we're in January and we've launched our app, so you can check it out at webapp by usforall.com. As you all know, I'm going to just offer Mame, who is our president and founder of Indigenous Health. Michael?
Sure, thank you so much, Madia. And again, app can be reached at webapp.buyusforall.com. And it's
Michael?
really the biggest. Yes. Can you hear
Oh,
me?
go ahead. I'm sorry. I'm having some technical difficulties. No, go ahead. You're good.
Yeah, so app's available at webapp.buyusforall.com. And it's really our main focus kind of going into Q1 of this year. So it's out. We have a couple upgrades that we're working to bring out by Black History Month. As Madia mentioned, we're working with the King Center on helping build out the beloved community. And so Yusuf and I will be speaking on a couple of panels Thursday, Friday this week at that event, and I know we have some slides that we'll share on that later on. But again, it's our continued work of community engagement and working through our platform. And so as we added Dr. Elizabeth Walla to our Impact Advisory Board. So that announcement came out last week, and we have a couple more announcements scheduled. And so it's an exciting time at Indigenous Health Group, and we have a lot more to share over the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, definitely. And I have that flyer. Here's the flyer for the King Center event. Michael, you like to talk about that?
Sure. So the brief highlight is, this is an event that it's an annual event, and ultimately the panel on health equity that I'll be speaking on is happening on Thursday, the 13th, and then Yusuf and I will be on the panel that really talks about the impact of technology uh, on ultimately where society is and where society is going. And so I think that'll be an interesting discussion to talk about not only the benefits of technology and science and sort of biotech, but also some of the harms and opportunities in that space. So 2 days of great sessions. Glad that Indigenous is well represented in this global discussion, and it's really just exciting to be working with institutions like the King Center to actually try and you know close some of these gaps that we've known have always existed, and now we're hoping to make some meaningful change. So it's exciting.
Yeah, that's great. Well, thank you for those updates. Hi, Yusuf. How are you?
Hey, how's it going?
Good. Welcome. Any opening comments? Yusuf or Brad? I'll just open the floor up. Welcome.
I'll let Dr. Wilson go. I know I was a little late.
Okay, Dr. Wilson.
No, starting off a new month, and looking forward to continuing our outreach efforts as Michael mentioned. So continue to support and looking forward to their involvement and their participation in the King Center activities this week.
Yeah, great. Thank you for that. Just
Yeah.
in news on our LinkedIn channel, we talked about the passing of Sidney Poitier. We also had some of his quotes up there on our social media sites. So still, feeling that loss, and as we looked at his quotes, we already had some quotes to talk about from Martin Luther King, and so it's just amazing to see some of the civil rights legends who who have done their work kind of move on, and become ancestors. So we have that content up. Was there anything about either person that anybody wanted to just share about briefly?
Yeah, for me, it's not really as deep. I didn't know he had 6 daughters, so I'm too shy. I need to.
You need
So,
to keep the work going.
Yeah.
yeah, no, I think I've followed and he's been a big staple in as a African American male. So
Mhm.
definitely appreciate what he has done for the culture and just the way he kind of lived his life. But yeah, that for me, that was after knowing a lot that I've known about him, that was one thing I wasn't privy to prior, was that he had 6 daughters, which
Six.
that could create a lot of stress.
Well, he has you beat, Yusuf. You only have four. So I mean,
Right, that's what I'm
I was
saying.
gonna say,
and Michael has three.
yes, this is true. Malcolm X had 6 daughters.
Right,
Muhammad Ali, don't know how many he had, but he had a bunch
but
of
his
daughters.
daughters,
So
yeah,
I'm noticing a trend
I'm
here.
seeing the trend.
Great black men to do great things. Need to have a lot of daughters.
Right, you gotta go through the fire. You gotta go through the fire first.
Okay, Brad and I are holding it down with the sons. Okay, so you
Sons are
guys
great
can have
too.
all your
Sons are
daughters.
great
Yeah,
too. Sons are
yeah,
great
yeah.
too.
So that's what was
Well,
interesting for me.
Yeah.
Yeah, that I knew Malcolm X had 6 daughters, so yeah, that was an interesting finding for me.
did you all know about his advocacy?
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, he was really, he was really working hard in the civil rights movement. And I think that was some of what I learned because you learn about the awards that he's gotten as an actor, but when you really study Sidney Poitier, I mean, he was really, really, I would say, critical in the civil rights movement and using his platform, as some of the stars at that time did, leveraging that platform, and we all know how important that is. But we're gonna turn and start to talk about. I really want to give this topic some time and some ample weight. It is really, I studied it as the communicator. I studied it, so very high level studies of cervical cancer and HPV. But being a woman, gives me a lot of good experience in this regard too, especially in terms of being tested for HPV, making sure you're staying up on your preventative care. But I'd like to pass the ball to Dr. Wilson to just start to introduce us, Dr. Wilson, if you would, to cervical cancer and the topic of HPV and cervical cancer.
Sure, just real generally, cancer, is kind of a situation where you have cells of the body, could be from any tissue and any organ that kind of like grow and divide uncontrollably
Mhm.
and form masses or what we call tumors. And it could be any cell type that a cancer can originate from. So, and in general, depending upon the cancer type, there can be environmental drivers that that are responsible for different types of cancer we see. For example, specifically, lung cancer is most often directly related to cigarette smoking.
Mhm.
And as we also know, cancers, or then, well, and then, so cigarette smoking, but then other types of lung cancer, like mesothelioma, for example, there are
Mm.
certain environmental and occupational hazards that put you at higher risk for that type of lung cancer.
Mhm.
And another example being like cervical cancer, which is directly related to human papillomavirus infection.
Mhm.
And this is a another virus that's naturally occurring, and some and many women have no issues with their immune system being able to naturally clear this virus, but
Mhm.
others may have more of an issue with that, and it may subsequently lead to cervical cancer.
Mhm. Now, I understand that cervical cancer disproportionately affects brown and black women, that it is Hispanic women that are actually more at risk for cervical cancer. Is that accurate?
Yeah, I believe that those two demographic groups have the highest relative risks for cervical cancer, and it's in terms of what's driving those increased risks. You would venture to say that it's most likely a variety of factors,
Mhm.
including some of the ones that we've discussed previously, like access to healthcare,
Mhm.
being one of them. That you could point to directly in terms of if women, black and brown women, are not seeing, getting their preventative annual well visits, where
Mhm.
things like pap smears and things like that are done to check up on, to follow up on, to do preventative screening for things like cervical cancer. Those things get missed, and then they get left unchecked, and then unfortunately be an issue. Then there are most likely some other drivers as well,
Understood.
that we can probably point to in terms
Uh-huh.
of genetic and biological factors. But again, it's going to be a variety of different things that are going to contribute to these disparities that we see.
Right. Now, if someone, what is the? I have not thought about the genetic factors. I thought that that HPV was the only cause um, of the cancer.
Yeah.
But you were saying there are genetic factors. What does that
Right.
mean?
For example, yeah, HPV is the pathogen that's directly related to the development, as causal
Uh-huh.
for cervical cancer and some other types of cancer as well
Uh-huh.
that can be transmitted by and are that HPV is responsible for as well. But as I mentioned, most women and a lot of women have their immune system is able to naturally clear or handle a HPV infection, or being exposed to HPV.
Hmm.
So the genetic differences I was speaking to are referenced into your immune system and in your immune system's ability to essentially to handle an HPV infection. So similarly, you see with COVID, right? There are some folks who are get infected with COVID and are completely asymptomatic, have no symptoms whatsoever. When you
Hmm.
have other folks who are on the other end of that spectrum, who are very severe symptoms, and have a really tough time recovering from the COVID infection. Now, there are lots of other factors involved with that, but there
Uh-huh.
are some basic genetic factors involved in your immune system's ability to handle these types of different viral infections.
Yeah.
Is there a way for people to know that sort of ahead of time, kind of like an early warning system of sorts, to just give people heads up at what their risk is for the HPV virus or cervical cancer in general?
Well, in terms of, I mean, it's the risks for that are going to be, in terms of your risk, your genetic risk. I would probably feel confident in saying that there's nothing that can tell you directly or specifically what can quantify your risk for cervical cancer at this point. Um, there may be some. There's probably a lot of research that needs to be done on the immune factors that are protective or put you at higher risk for infection by HPV. But I don't, to my knowledge, there's nothing available currently that can kind of quantify that risk for you.
Got it. Do we know if there's any? And I'm
Go in, Michael. Go in. No, that's great.
Because I think last week there was a conversation about how you could like drink carrot juice for something,
for my eyes,
right?
yeah.
For vitamin A and all that stuff. Is there something like that that we know of today on the diet side that could help from a protective standpoint, maybe boosting the immune system in some way, or we don't even know what that could be?
I mean, well, generally, diet, exercise, healthy diet, healthy balanced diet, and exercise filled with lots of foods with antioxidants and immune boosting, nutrients and components like things like vitamin C and things like that are naturally immune boosting. Sunlight, vitamin D is also important in your immune system, which is something that's maybe a little less known, right? We think about vitamin D in terms of calcium for our bones and things like that, but it also plays a big role in your immune system. So things like that, a healthy diet, activity is also very very beneficial. It increases circulation, which helps, mobilize your body's defenses, right? Your immune system and your white blood cells. That's moving your blood cells around, circulation, in your body. It also helps all of that. So there are some basic general things that we can all do. These are some of the things that we would probably like to see people talking more about, over the past, couple of years regarding COVID, right? In terms of how everyone could give themselves a little bit better shot, give themselves a little bit help, give their immune systems a little help, right?
Give their immune system, but people don't know these things at times, right? I think there's just this knowledge gap, education gap. It's just some of these things are not known. And then if you think about COVID, I can speak for myself, working from home. I'm an introvert anyways, and so I don't know the last time I got any direct sunlight other than the shoveling of snow. And so hey, my body's still recovering. I'm getting old. And so when I think about myself, and it's like, now that I know this, maybe there's something I could hopefully do to just force myself to be outside a little bit more.
Are men at risk for cervical cancer?
This is not in the context of cervical cancer.
Okay.
No, you would have to have a cervix, I assume.
I was just making sure.
Not a scientist, but I assume you need to have the part.
You're right.
I just saying in general, because that's what Brad said. In general, it is immune boosting. And so I'm thinking overall what things I could do to boost my immune system.
Here's cervical cancer, but definitely prostate cancer, Marty.
Yes. I do have a prostate.
Okay.
I do have a prostate.
So here's my question, and this is a big question, Dr. Wilson. So I'm just gonna put it out there, and then I'm gonna stop talking. But what seems to be most what the industry seems to be advocating for is vaccination from HPV. And I know that it is a topic that is sensitive and it merits that sensitivity, right? But is there what's the conversation about that vaccine? And I know our community, we've been having conversations about vaccines outside of HPV, right? We've been talking about the COVID vaccine and hosting, learning. So what is there that we can say about the vaccine? as it relates to treating HPV and preventing cervical cancer?
Right. Well, vaccines are generally on the prevention side of things, not necessarily the treatment side. So traditionally, a vaccine is administered to prevent infection from a given pathogen. Like when we were kids, we got measles, mumps, and rubella vaccinations, right?
Right.
And so that we didn't get measles, mumps, or rubella. Similarly, like smallpox, chickenpox vaccination prevented you from getting smallpox or chickenpox.
Right.
Um, Similarly, fast forwarded to a little more recently, we have like flu vaccinations, right? Flu
Right.
vaccinations are made up. They're how they're formulated is usually the flu strains that people got infected with from the previous flu season.
Mhm.
Those are taken and collected and utilized to formulate the vaccine for the following year. So to give prevention against the last strains of flu that we saw as a human population. But viruses mutate very rapidly. So what happens is that you get the flus out there that mutate and mutate into different strains that were not covered by the vaccine. So
Mhm.
then people who are vaccinated can still get the flu because they gotten infected by one of those strains that wasn't
Yes.
covered in the vaccine.
Right.
So we look at HPV vaccines, it's kind of a similar story because the HPV vaccine that's available covers certain strains of HPV, right?
Okay.
Those are
Okay.
some of the most commonly ones that cause cervical cancer. However, there are other strains of HPV that are still out there. So
Okay.
if someone were to receive an HPV vaccine, it's still possible they could get infected with one of these other strains of HPV not covered by the vaccine and
Hmm.
subsequently still get
The
cervical
virus.
cancer. Yeah, so infected and cervical
Cervical cancer.
cancer.
Okay.
But that vaccine would have some would provide it does provide protection against infections by the strains that are covered
Hmm.
under the vaccine, but there are just some others that are not covered that could still cause cervical cancer. So, with as with any decision that one has to make in terms of whether you're getting a vaccine or take a medication, these are the things that you want to have a conversation with your doctor about if you're interested in getting them, and they can give you more information and share with
Hmm.
you more data and give you more detailed information about your individual risks as they're being your clinician. They have a pretty good picture of what your health looks like, hopefully only second to you as the person. We should
Right.
we should all know as much as we can about our own health. I think that might be a good idea.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Any other thoughts, Michael or Yusuf, on the conversation around the vaccine? I know you all are also parents, as am I, and so when I was researching for today's episode, I saw a lot about the vaccine and a lot about the decisions that parents were making to or not to get their children vaccinated for HPV. So any thoughts for you all as parents, as former regulators and in the field of health, just any thoughts you'd like to share?
You want to go,
Yusuf, I don't know
Michael?
if you.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, it's a sensitive topic. My
Yeah.
girls are 6 and younger, and so
Right.
we haven't had those conversations yet. But I know they're coming,
Hmm.
and so for me, it's just trying to get as much information as possible. We typically err on the side of getting vaccinated, as long as it's safe and we know enough about it, and it's clear that the risks of avoiding the vaccine are much greater than the risks of getting the vaccine. I think that's always the decision point. Is
Mm-hmm.
we have enough information
Mm-hmm.
on this vaccine to know, is the risk of getting it greater than the risk of not getting it, and then how do you really balance that? That's sort of how we go about making that decision. So uh, in the case of COVID, since
Yeah.
that's kind of what's out there, gotten triple vaxxed, I feel really good. And so for me, I think we know enough about it.
Yeah.
I'd rather be on the side of getting the shot, and so that's the side that I'm on.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, having three girls that were in the drop zone of making the decision.
Drop zone. These
Right,
references, man.
right. It's yeah, again, it's always a sensitive topic, but I think for me, again, I think all three of my girls were at the age where they were able to get the HPV. It's just because, again, I think what Brad highlighted, there is some benefits with at least getting some level of protection.
Hmm.
And so, for me, it was mainly just making sure that if there was something out there that was safe and effective and could help prevent any onset or early onset of cervical cancer by having a HPV go undetected, was more important for me. So, all three of the girls that were at the eligible age when those vaccine were being issued, we were able to go ahead and get them vaccinated. Because I think it's, again, I think one of the things was we still don't understand how early. Okay, hear me?
Sorry, you said. I think we were having a little bit of a technical difficulty. So if you
Oh,
could just start the last sentence.
No, I think that was just on your end, Marty. I was
yeah,
hearing
I
Okay,
you
was like,
good,
fine.
good.
yeah,
Yeah, you might wanna upgrade that internet.
yeah,
Wow. I'm
right,
working on it.
right. So yeah, no, I think again, now that the girls, the twins are older to make their own decisions, so they did get vaccinated. They did ask me my 2 cents
Hmm.
before they got the COVID vaccine, and my younger 17-year-old, she went ahead and got it too, just because she's in school, and so schools were having kids coming back, from the online learning. And so I think those are all, measures that, again, are, based on information and the literacy that I have, right, as the parent, to provide as much information. I think that's where the biggest thing I like to highlight. It all starts with getting as educated and literate around your health and what your family composed of in order to
Hmm.
make these informed decisions. I don't think, for me, there's no wrong or right decision when it comes to your family based on your ethical belief or your religious belief. Just getting as much information for you to say, well, hey, this information is what we have, and again, making decisions based on what's best for your family. She's frozen.
No, maybe she is.
Yeah, maybe
She might
she's.
be frozen. Maria.
She's sleeping, or she.
No, great conversation around a very important topic. I think for most of these things, as we dig, we find that the health disparities that we're always talking about are there, and it just goes to show that you know, in as much as our systems of care and systems in general aren't designed with everyone in mind, these disparities will just keep popping up. And so, that's kind of why we're building all this stuff we're building. It's, can we build a system to help educate everyone, right? Everyone that's not aware of what they need to be aware of when it comes to these risks. So it's exciting what we're working on, and cervical cancer is one of those topics. We'll have other topics. Yay, she's back. Um, and so we were just rapping. Um, and so I
Yes,
look
I
at
was gonna
this.
say
I
something.
look
Right.
at this. I look at this like every other topic we talk about. It's disparities are there.
Hmm.
Uh, Lives are being lost needlessly, and so it's a question of how quickly can we ramp up kind of some of the solutions we're trying to put out there to help people, So use this
Yes.
might get better educated because knowledge is power. If people know, I think they'll make the right decision.
Yeah. And just take that first step in filling out in getting our app and filling out that health assessment, and then you will have something to sit and talk to your doctor about. There are questions in the survey about certain illnesses, and when you understand that runs in your family, you can work a plan, to live your best life. And
Yeah.
so you can download the app at buyusforall.com, specifically webapp.buyusforall.com. And we look forward to getting our latest and greatest versions. Our latest and greatest is out there, so we invite you to come along with us and download the app and join us on the journey. All right. Well, I will close it. Any other closing comments, gentlemen, before we close?
Nope. Not
All
here.
right. Well, let's get out of here before my internet goes out again. Thank you all. Sorry.
We have to get off anyway.